3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's podcast on all things branding and digital marketing. Since 2008, Peralta Design has launched hundreds of brands with award-winning identities and websites. Join our hosts Ramon and Jorge as they use decades of combined experience to tackle topics with past clients, industry partners, and the rest of the PD crew. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode of Mission Control.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's podcast. This is your host, Ramon Peralta. I'm the creative director at Peralta Design, where we launch brands, and we're happy today to have you on our podcast that covers everything branding, marketing, advertising, entrepreneurship, small business ownership. We run the gamut of topics. We try to bring the best guests for you to help you in your business. As you know, we launch brands, and we love seeing our listeners become more and more successful. So I'm very, very happy to have my good friend and fellow UB alumni, Richard Shapiro, from the Center for Client Retention. Welcome, Richard.
Welcome, Ramon. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I know I'm going to enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, let's have some fun. So, Richard, let's start with, tell us what you do. What do you do? This sounds like a science lab of some sort. It's not affiliated with the CDC, but this is serious business.
Yes, I do have a center, but it's the Center for Client Retention. And actually, a lot of people ask me, is it a profit or nonprofit entity? And I said, well, it's definitely profit. Mm-hmm. We make some money, but maybe it's nonprofit because we're trying to help the world. So yeah, I started this company 32 years ago, and it's called the Center for Client Retention. And we basically help companies, not only retain the clients that they have, whether they're B2B or B2C, but also either increase market share from existing business customers, because there's always an opportunity, or increase wallet share from consumers. And we do that through research, training, and consulting services.
Yeah, excellent. I'm fascinated with it because so much attention these days is given towards conversion and customer acquisition and more of the hunting side. So I'm really excited about diving deep into the farming side, which is what I consider this process and this client retention, and definitely want to pick your brain on customer experience and CX and all that fun stuff. So how did you get here? Because I've heard your story a couple times where you've mentioned ADP. We currently use them. This is not a plug for them. We currently use them for our payroll, so I'm familiar with the company. You started there. Tell us a bit about, like, when you were at UB, did you always envision yourself running this type of company, or did your career kind of just take you here? And what was it about ADP that you were able to carry over into this?
Well, sure, Ramon. Actually, even before though ADP, because I always like to tell this story, when I was growing up, my dad owned a small men's retail clothing store in northern New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And every Saturday I went to work with my dad, and I got dressed in a suit and drove to work with him. And my job was being the cashier. So the beauty of the job was not only was it fun, but I could also see my dad interacting with every customer as they entered a store. So I learned so many things from my dad, and that's how I actually got started in this whole business, I think. And I learned three important things. Number one, he said all customers are people first, customers second. And I'll say that again, customers are people first, customers second. It's also, if you're a university, students are people first. The second thing he taught me was to welcome everybody into the store just like you'd welcome them into your home. And the third thing, and I really feel I'm carrying out his legacy, is he taught me the importance of and how to create an emotional bond with each customer. So using those three as my basic principles really for life and business, that's really what I do today. So getting to the ADP story, which I think is so important because it is a critical component. I started out in retail working at my dad's store. And then when I was going for my MBA after the University of Bridgeport, I was going for my MBA at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and I did decide that I should start earning some money. So I went to a agency, like a personal agency. And, those days were a little bit different and a little bit easier. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do one day. I'm going to take off one day from my studies, and I want you to find me a really good job. So they said, sure. So the next day they set me up with 2 interviews. One was with a startup called ADP, and the other one was with Tenneco Chemical. And both companies offered me a job. And then I went back to Snelling and Snelling, which the agency, and I said, which one should I take? And they said, well, ADP, is a growing company. So basically, when I started with ADP, it was a startup. The revenues were 40 million. Today, I'm sorry, when I left, they were 4 billion, and today they're almost $14 billion. So that's where I gained all my experience, and I went from account executive to client services executive to general manager of their largest region. And in my last job, I was vice president of client retention and customer satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And it seems to me like your dad was a pioneer in the whole customer experience, mindset, because making them feel at home, considering them people, I'm sure that those skills, and those kind of bullet points there really helped when you were at ADP and acquiring customers and then just kind of treating them right. And at the time, ADP being a startup, I don't want to get you to give away your age unless you really want to. But what was the technology around you at that time? Because I'm big on the tools that we use now. So, what did you have? What were you equipped with on your daily job?
Well, actually, the computer then was a card sorter. That was one of the first computers. So actually, most of the employees of ADP, as well as any kind of company that was similar at that time, everything was done through key punch cards. So, of course, there's a lot of funny stories because, after the key punch operators would punch a whole box of cards, which were the programs, you had to make sure that you didn't drop those boxes of cards, because if you dropped them, they went all over the place. But
was it an actual card? Was it like a piece of paper or a piece of plastic?
It was a piece of paper, and
okay.
and literally you punched cards. It was one of the first earliest computers. So, and actually, when it comes to technology, I was probably one of the first people that had my own computer, had my own laptop, had my own built-in cell phone in the car. So up until recently, I always figured, no matter what my age was, that I was a technology expert. But now I always need some help, just like everybody else. But I'd be happy. I'm actually just turned, I'm a Bridgeport graduate. I graduated in 1963. So I just had my 75th birthday, and I certainly feel like I'm about 40. And
well, you look like it. I've already complimented you on the gun show that you always bring to your meetings.
I know. Well, you got to keep in good shape.
Absolutely. What did you think? What were some of the skills? Because I think this is important for our entrepreneurs out there, that they may be in a job, and I feel this is interesting also for business owners when it comes to customer retention. But for those folks that are out there, we help a lot of people that are in jobs but they want to launch a business, or they're in transition. What kind of skills did you learn in that corporate environment that you think helped you at the Center for Customer Retention?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. One, why I became an entrepreneur, and some hints for that, and number Sure. 2, what I learned at ADP, which is, could help any business today. And in my last position, when I was vice president of client retention, I was actually mandated to take the account manager program that was just in the infancy and grow it and make sure that it worked. And what I found out is that account managers were visiting clients, but in many cases, they weren't visiting decision makers. And even if they were visiting decision makers, they weren't asking decision makers the right questions. And even if they were asking the right questions, that feedback wasn't getting back. So why weren't account managers, and many companies have account managers who are younger, and then they're trying to make maybe appointments with controllers or CFOs, or purchasing departments, and sometimes they're a lot older, so they don't know how to start a conversation. So I actually developed a tool, and that tool was a list of open-ended questions, because I realized that my account managers, who were about 22 or 23 at the time, they didn't know what questions or how to engage the conversation with this CFO. So by using this crutch of a questionnaire, they were able to make an appointment to tell the CFO, listen, we always do a client assessment once a year. And once they were in there, they asked those questions, and they not only got great information, but those questions help build a closer personal relationship, which is really what you want to do. So the key to retaining business is building that, relationship, that close relationship. And then, because they were asking him so many questions and having a great conversation, so many additional services were also developed from that. So if anybody has a business, especially business customers, I think once a year you should sit down with your customers and ask them a bunch of open-ended questions, not just satisfaction questions, but about their business, what challenges they have, what do they see in the industry, especially now with COVID. Every business basically has a new customer. The second thing I learned from ADP, which is really critical if anybody's thinking about going into their own business, is annuity revenue. It's so important. If you're going to set up a business, try to think of a business that could have ongoing service component to it. Because if you're just in a service where you do one project and then go to another project, as we all know, it's very hard to market in between. But if you have annuity revenue, then pretty much in November, December, pretty much what your minimum revenues are going to be the next year. So have a product that you believe in, have a service that you believe in, but always try to have an ongoing component to that, whether it's once a quarter, once a month, twice a year, etc. That would be my advice.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I love the fact about establishing relationships. A lot of gems there that I'm sure our listeners are going to be taking notes on. The questions, I think a lot of salespeople oftentimes, I know one of our strategic partners, friends and clients, Rob Thomas, says salespeople often show up and throw up, and so they don't give the customer a chance to talk. And I think that's a key takeaway there, is to just ask those questions and learn about your customer and learn about the client and solidify that relationship. And I love the annuity stuff, because when I was starting out, in a very similar way, I went from an annual salary that I knew what I was going to make every 2 weeks to starting out as a freelancer or a contract person, where I wasn't so much concerned as what I was making per hour anymore. I was trying to see what could I do to create monthly recurring revenue so that I could plan, because without that, it's very difficult. And so that annuity revenue is, if you play your cards right, you can renew that. So I love that. I love that about that. Now, tell me a little bit, or tell our listeners a little bit about the type of clients that you help. Like, what's an ideal client, or if you have a success story that'll give us a little peek into how your company helps its customers.
Sure. Well, we have several different types of clients. If it's a multinational company, like a Fortune 100 company, usually we're working with their call center. Almost every company has a call center. As a matter of fact, we've worked with companies that have 3 people in their call center, and we've worked with companies that have 1,000 people in their call center. And every call center or contact center could be made more effective. So in those particular cases, one of the services we do provide are ongoing customer satisfaction and loyalty research, and then also training and consulting to make that call center more effective. We also work with a lot of account managers, and it doesn't matter what the industry is. So it could be a small law firm, a small accounting firm, a small social services firm, a nonprofit. It doesn't matter. If you have, just like I did for ADP, if you have people going out to see your clients on a regular basis, we can teach those people how to be more effective, to once again retain their business as well as generate additional business income. And that could be, a law firm with 10 people altogether, or it could be a university. So one of the interesting jobs that I did that I really loved was it was a university, a Hispanic university in Florida, and they were experiencing a high attrition rate where students were signing up and registering and going through the process, but never graduating.
Mm-hmm.
So they implemented, based on our advice, a student success counselor product or program or position, where every time a new student came on board, they were assigned a specific person, which is important in any business. This happened to be a university system. So then what we did is we trained those student success counselors based on my 8 steps that are in my book, how to be more effective, and also how to recognize that every student who comes into a university system, not only do they want to graduate, they have hope that something's going to happen. They're going to have a better life. They're going to be able to make a better living or move their kids into a better school system. So I taught the student success counselors the importance of finding out what the specific hope of that student was, and then providing a personalized roadmap for helping them deliver that hope. Mm-hmm. So in any business, everybody has hope. It's your job really to find out what that hope is, whether you're running whether you own a cleaning store or accounting firm, a law firm, it doesn't really matter. So
yeah, and how would a client measure the results if they worked with you? What do you look at for metrics to say, hey, since you were with us, you've kept? Is it a percentage of clients that are retained? Is it can they expect sales to go up?
Yeah, it depends. That's an excellent question. If it's customer satisfaction and loyalty research, we know, and it's true, that if the satisfaction and loyalty numbers go up, then they're going to be able to retain, a higher percentage of business. So on the satisfaction and loyalty side, it's a metric, and we might have 20 different metrics. So we know if those, we not only measure, but we make improvements. So if they follow our improvements and recommendations, they're going to see their numbers skyrocket, and that's going to help, with retention. Certainly any service firm, they know exactly, if they're dealing with businesses, they know exactly what their revenues are for a client for 1 year or the last 5 years. So it's easy to measure the before and after. But retention doesn't happen overnight. It could take 2 or 3 years to actually affect your retention rate. Yes, you're starting immediately. It's just like in sales where they say, you got to develop a funnel. So retention is the same thing. You have to start to build a relationship, but they might already have decided that they're going to switch, firms. So, it might take a couple of years, but you got to start the process because you want it to be effective over the long term.
Mm-hmm. Now, in our world, we're most often discussing user experience, user interface. So we're using UI, UX, and we're usually talking about how a person navigates a website. So we may create, a sales funnel, and we drive traffic to a page, and the person gets to the page, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to click. Is CX or is customer experience similar? Is it about them walking into a brick and mortar and feeling a certain way, or is it a more intimate relationship where it's an account executive directly dealing with a client, or are they all covered under client retention?
Well, it's all CX, but I'm going to give you an example. I don't know if it's exactly your question, but I think it's such an important, point, especially for anybody who has an e-commerce site.
Yeah.
If somebody is not familiar with your company, and if they're not a former or current customer, there's a step before they actually buy from you, and that's that they want to engage with you. Just like I said, my dad said, make them feel welcome. You have to make someone feel welcome before they even enter your website. Right. So for instance, there was a company, and I can say what it is. It's a luxury brand called Anatomy, and they make travel wear for women. They're going also into men. Mm-hmm. But when I was looking at their website about 6 months ago, they had a telephone number on the upper right-hand corner, which I liked, that wasn't buried. But I said, oh, why is that telephone number there? And they looked at me like I was crazy, like, well, for people to call. And I said, but why are people going to call? Well, if they want to buy something. No. I said, they don't know about your brand. Right. So then they changed it to please call us with questions. Okay. I think if more websites were inviting to customer to ask a question rather than actually buy,
Right.
then once you get into that, you can measure all the metrics. But if they don't get into the website because they don't feel like it's open and welcome, you're not going to be able to do all the other things that are going to be able to generate, income from that.
Right. That's a great insight. I think too many people go right for the kill, and this is a bit more of grooming, foreplay, if you will. Get them a little bit warmed up to before you go in and say, hey, we just want them to buy something. And I think people are also hesitant if you show your teeth too quickly, and we don't want that. We want to build that trustful relationship. I think. What's the biggest advantage that you think a company can gain by investing in CX?
I think it can clearly differentiate your company from your competitors. I mean, CX to me is all about personal relationships, and the strongest bond is between two people. Mm-hmm. So I tell, I know a lot of your listeners are probably small companies. Make sure people know when they go on your website that it's you that they possibly are going to be dealing with. Don't say contact us. Say contact John, or I want to hear from you. I know Harry's, shaving, they did sell the company recently. It's either Gillette or something. But, when they were a brand by themselves, it was, we want to hear from you. Harry, we want to hear from you, or the owners. It wasn't owners, but the two owners who started. I think they also started Warby Parker too. So don't, if I was teaching at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, and a lot of times I had young designers in my classroom, and I said, if you're a designer, have the picture of you on the website. Tell people to call Brianna. And I was so happy that one of my students, and actually I did a podcast for her yesterday, she was so brilliant and she understood it and she got it right away. And she said, let me show you my new website. And on every page, it said, call Brianna. And it had her telephone number. It was simple. It wasn't complicated.
But okay? do you think, I think small business owners, I know that when I started, like now we've got the 2 locations, we've got the staff, everybody's on W-2, but in the beginning, I thought if I did that, it was going to make me look small. Isn't that counterintuitive to somebody that's trying to scale to be too personal, or do you disagree?
I disagree, and I know that T-Mobile and Sprint just merged, but I heard one of the executives at T-Mobile, and it just made so much sense that they said they were, they're a big company, but they were going to develop teams. It doesn't necessarily have to be one person, but a team, so that if you sign up for their services and you were in New Jersey, you would get people not necessarily who lived in New Jersey, but were familiar with Jersey. Right. So that when you got on the phone with them or chatted with them, they could talk about the sports teams and the traffic and things like that. Mm-hmm. So if I can leave your listeners with anything, the strongest bond is between two people. Right. Don't be afraid. If you're a small, they don't know that you don't have, that you could have 40 people behind the scenes, but let them know that you can talk to John. And if they call John or they email John and say, well, John's not here, but I'm Harry or June, I can help you.
Right. I mean, we know that for us, that's a differentiator, is people want to talk to Jorge, people want to speak to Kevin, or people, when they call us, they ask for someone specifically, and you're absolutely right when it comes to that. You mentioned your book briefly. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about it and what our listeners might be able to glean from that?
Yeah, well, by accident, I happen to have a copy of my book. So it's called The Endangered Customer, and it is a good book. It's an excellent book. It came out in 2016. Actually, on the bookmark, it has my 8 steps, which are: make me feel welcome, give me your full attention, answer more than my question, know your stuff, don't tell me no, invite me to return, show me I matter, and surprise me in good ways. And what's the beauty of the book is it's good for e-commerce, electronic commerce, or communication, telephone, or face-to-face. The 8 steps are all based on human components, so it definitely works. And it's available in print, audio, and digital. So
love it. I love those 8 steps.
Yeah, I think the people love the 8 steps, and just they're based on a famous psychotherapist, Eric Erickson, and basically the 8 steps fall into 3 categories: hope, trust, and intimacy. And too many companies don't do the intimacy part. And that's really showing your customers that you care about them after the transaction or the sale is over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it. I love the book. I'm going to have to grab a copy, autographed, of course. Yeah.
Well, my books were under quarantine, but now they're starting to get out of quarantine.
All right. Excellent. Now, there are businesses that focus more on, new customers. They don't care about the relationship. They're like in a volume mentality. Then you have other folks that really push this idea of like, less is more. We can get more out of our client base over the long term. It's an entirely different kind of mindset. Do you recommend that businesses be 50-50 on those, on hunting and farming, or should a scaling business or a growing business focus on one more than the other? What are your thoughts on that?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to say 75-25, with 75 being focusing on your current customers and 25 new customers. Listen, every business, we're the Center for Client Retention, and we never lose a client. Actually, it's rare. But you always have to have some new customers coming into the funnel. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But when you have existing customers, there's so many opportunities, because in most, and I know it's true in your company too, in almost every company, a customer doesn't know about all the services that you provide. You could do printing and they don't know you do website, or they don't know you do large format, or they don't know you do retail posters. So by nurturing and developing those relationships, gives the client an opportunity to build a relationship and find out about those additional services beside being, referred to other companies. So I'd say definitely, no matter what the business was, 75-25, I think is a good mix. 25 new, 75 focused on your current customers.
Okay, that's fair enough. Now, you said you've never lost a client. Have you ever had to fire a client?
Probably in the 32 years once. But listen, I think, we have lost some clients, and I think it has to do really with the fact that you're never dealing with a Procter & Gamble, you're dealing with Joe who works at Procter & Gamble. Mm-hmm. And my advice, which is what we always do, is not only do we build a relationship with Joe, we build a relationship with maybe his entire team in case Joe is gone. Mm-hmm. But I've been very lucky, matter of fact, in 2001, this was before 9/11, we picked up 11 new clients, and they were all people who left the existing firm, which was a client, went to new companies and immediately hired us, and we still kept every one of the existing customers because our work is good. Mm. So if the work is good and you communicate the benefits of your work, even if someone changes, but it is so important, every time a client contact changes at your customer site, you have to treat it like a brand new customer and go in there and ask them those same questions, or, why did you select this? What do you like best? You have to build that relationship almost immediately, because in a lot of cases, those people that just came in might be dealing with some of your competitors in another job or another position. So it just leaves you vulnerable.
Right. Now, I can't leave out this whole pandemic that we're in. I mean, it's like the world's on fire, and we're, as business owners, trying to keep the lights on, trying to keep the economy going, trying to continue to help people. Aside from the obvious customer experience changes, like restaurants that were known for their ambiance are now eating under a tent in a parking lot. Your bank, maybe you weren't going to see the teller as often, but now they've all become exclusively drive-through. They don't even let you inside. So aside from those obvious changes, are there any new customer experiences that you've seen develop that are going to stay with us permanently, like moving forward?
Well, what I talked about is, I think you have to add 2 steps before you make people feel welcome now, and that's protect and communicate. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. I hadn't gotten a haircut in a long time, but now we're Massachusetts, the coronavirus rate is very, very low. So I felt a little bit more comfortable. So I contacted a salon, and right away they told me what their procedures were to protect customers. They said, you stay in your car, Janie will come out and get you, and she'll have a mask on. We take your temperature. I went in, they took my temperature. I had to sign a piece of paper. They asked me a whole bunch, questions. Everything was partitioned with shower curtains between the shampoo and things like that. And then I had a regular conversation with the person who was cutting my hair that I never knew before. I will definitely go back. But for any business, especially for existing customers, you have to communicate with them what you've done, what's different, how you're going to protect them, and make sure you communicate. And I know in a lot of businesses, which is very unfortunate, they don't even keep the emails, of their customers. Emails are the most valuable asset to your company in addition to the customers. If you don't have the emails of your customers, then you're really leaving yourself vulnerable, especially in this type of situation. So, I mean, I know my son, got contacted by his barber through Facebook, but why should you have to go through all those steps?
Right.
If he had the email of my son, he wouldn't have to do that,
Right.
or the cell number or whatever. So
Exactly.
I think it's important.
Exactly. I agree. I think your addendum is going to be the 10 steps, because you're going to add those 2 new ones to the beginning there. Well, this has been such a great time. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to tell our listeners where they can find you and the best way to reach you, and if there are any talks or anything that's coming up that they may be able to catch you on Zoom or some webinar.
Well, I think the best thing is LinkedIn is really my primary social media platform, and that's where I post all my events, all my podcasts, that other people do. So if it's it's under Richard R. Shapiro. My website is the Center for Client Retention, tcfcr.com. But I think, and what I love about LinkedIn is if someone connects with me on LinkedIn, I can message with them through LinkedIn. They don't have to know, my email or worry about that. So that'll provide them with all my blogs, my podcasts, and I can help to build relationships with them through the LinkedIn platform. So that's my best suggestion on how you can keep in touch.
All right. Excellent. Well, Richard, thanks for taking the time to join us today. This has been a wonderful experience. I think there's a lot of gems of wisdom and nuggets there for anyone out there that's looking to grow and build their business. And I hope that I hope to continue to learn from you. And I'm really grateful to have you in my network. So thank you for joining.
My pleasure, Ramon. And I'm so happy that we graduated the same university. We have a bond for years.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, this is Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands. And I'm very, very thankful to have you join us here today on our latest episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design. Thank you.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. To learn more about Peralta Design and our work, go to www.peraltadesign.com and subscribe to keep up with the crew.